In prior videos, I showed that Beyonce was related to some powerful druidic witches like Joel Hurt, an Acadian slaver and business partner of Asa Candler, the founder of Coca-Cola. These men founded the Atlanta neighborhood Druid Hills based on their own druidic religion and heritage. We're going to look at some of the traditions brought over from Europe by these elites, specifically the mystic societies celebrated during the Mardi Gras in Mobile and New Orleans, which originated with the Jesuits, who are basically Druids. A commenter said Acadia was named after Arcadia, a semi-mythical region in Greece featured in old poetry as an equivalent to Eden, mentioning the phrase et in Arcadia ego, meaning I lived in Arcadia. The phrase is a memento mori spoken by Death, or Satan, the bringer of death, reminding the viewer that even in Eden there was a serpent. This phrase obviously originated with the European elite pagans who settled the area. I've already covered the elites who settled New Orleans, so now I will talk about Mobile, Alabama, which was the original capital of Louisiana. These elites can be considered counterparts to the English colonial settlement of Jamestown, Virginia. Pierre Le d'Iberville founded the colony of Louisiana in New France, which was then Mobile, Alabama. He was an elite military leader and colonial administrator, just like the ones who settled on the East Coast, Jamestown, Massachusetts. But Pierre was born in Montreal to French colonist parents, but worked in his family's Port Royal, Acadia trading business. His brother, Jean-Baptiste Lemoyne Bienville, founded New Orleans, and he was also a military leader and colonial administrator. Both were raised under the Jesuit order. See, he got his little Maltese cross down here. This is a pentagonal Fort Conde that was there, named for Henri Louis, Duke of Bourbon, who was a Prince du Sang, or Prince of Blood, like Armand de Bourbon in Interview with the Vampire. Let's see, where is he? There he is, Louis Henri, Duke of Bourbon, Prince du Sang, or Prince of Blood. He was Prime Minister of France during the reign of Louis XV. So perhaps he was the inspiration for Louis Dulac in Interview with the Vampire. Interesting that they made that Louis black. Perhaps a nod to the interbreeding with the hoodoo practicing African prior slaves who interbred with the Acadian people. This area of Mobile is very close and right between Mississippi, where the Sinners movie took place, home of the Blues, where they intersected with the vampires, and it's also next to Terrebonne Parish, where Beyonce's mother was raised. Here's a map of it. And look, there's a town named Dulac. It's right there in the middle, Dulac. Louis Dulac from Interview with the Vampire. And if you zoom out, you can see that New Orleans and the Mississippi Delta and Mobile are very close, all within about 150 miles of each other, accessible via the Intercoastal Waterway, or the swamp. They're all right here. Here's Terrebonne Parish, New Orleans, Mississippi. Let's see, Mobile. Mobile's right there. They're all there. The first Coca-Cola bottling plant was there in Mobile. The family who owned it was Bellingrath. They're German, but I couldn't find anything negative about them except that the bricks from their home were taken from a Vanderbilt home that was destroyed somehow. So they were connected with Asa Candler, Joel Hurt, Vanderbilt, Druidic slaving crew also. Louis Henri, Duke of Bourbon, Prince of Blood. So they claim that migration from Canada to Louisiana was because they were pushed out by the Brits as a result of the King William's War, but that does not make sense in the context of a real war. And why not? Because these same people named New Orleans for Philip II, Felipe, I guess is how you pronounce that. They named New Orleans for Felipe II, Duke of Orleans, and his parents were Felipe I, Duke of Orleans, and his first cousin, Princess Henrietta of England, sister of King Charles II of England. So Felipe II was also married to his first cousin, Marie de Bourbon. And his brothers and sisters were Marie Louise, Queen of Spain, and Anne Marie, Queen of Sardinia. So the fact that the namesake of New Orleans was a French royal married to an English royal who was also his cousin doesn't necessarily constitute a war in terms of what we've been taught. More like a war between cousins over land control in the States. Regardless, they think we're dumb or lazy or just don't care enough to do the tiniest bit of homework or dot connecting. But we're proving them wrong now. But this video is mainly about the mystic societies in Mobile, which originated with these elites. And these mystic societies were the foundation of the carnival, now known as Mardi Gras. And that's the oldest carnival still operating in the U.S. A mystic society is a Mardi Gras social organization in Mobile, Alabama, that holds parades and masquerade balls, which are invite only. Kind of like Eyes Wide Shut. The New Orleans crew is patterned after Mobile's mystics. But Mardi Gras carnivals originated in Mobile since it was settled first, then later spread to New Orleans. Mobile first celebrated Carnival in 1703 when French settlers began the festivities at the Old Mobile site. And the Old Mobile site was the location of the French settlement known as New France in North America from 1702 to 1712. And that settlement was founded and originally governed by that Pierre Lamond d'Iberville, the Jesuit. And then it was governed by his younger brother, Jean-Baptiste Lamond de Bienville, also a Jesuit. So then Jesuit missionaries spread out to convert the Indians, and they were referred to as brilliant ministers of King Louis XIV, the Sun King. I've talked about the casket girls being sent to New Orleans on the order of King Louis before, but they were also ordered to Mobile, supposedly to marry the Canadians and increase the population by bearing children. But they were shipped over on a ship called the Pelican, which also brought yellow fever to the natives and killed many of them. How convenient. Mobile's first informal carnival society was organized in 1711 with the Beau Grass Society, or the Fattened Ox Society, started by the Jesuits. And then that morphed into the Cowbellion de Racon Society, which was a masked mystic society accompanied by a parade with horse-drawn floats entitled Heathen Gods and Goddesses. And this is a poster from that, and here on this poster you can see the Owl of Minerva at the bottom, like at the Bohemian Grove. You can see a skull and crossbones type symbol, devils, angels, a queen, jesters, and so forth. Then you have the Strikers Independent Society, which is still going today. Here's a poster for their New Year's Eve ball, and that's a nice goat there. This one also has their goat, and it's a float. It says of the Veiled Prophet, which I covered the Veiled Prophet in another video titled The Veiled Prophet, and I'm going to play some of that video now because they also have the same secret society in St. Louis, which is also named for King Louis. Here's an offshoot of that same one. In New Orleans, got the goat. Now I'm going to play this video I made before about the veiled prophet.
This short video will be another example of how the Luciferian pagan religions are basically the same thing, and how they operate through secret societies in the occult. Jesus' coming forced them to obfuscate it by covering all their Luciferianism in art, theater, parades, circuses, film, opera, music, allegory, all the stuff that I talk about on this channel. And this is the religion of the elites. It's how they got to be elites in the first place, or it runs in the family. And I'm not going to go over all the common practices because y'all already know what they are, but some examples are magic, aka witchcraft, sun, moon, and star worship, and planets, worship of the associated spirits with those, fallen angels, drugs, sex, revelry, usury, etc. And this example is not one I'd heard of, but a friend in the UK sent it to me, and it's called the Veiled Prophet Secret Society. And they give this ball or parade in St. Louis annually since the later 1800s. But the Veiled Prophet is the grand wizard of it. This is just an advertisement from it. And he used to be honored as a giant on a float during the parade, but then they changed it to masked person and called him the Veiled Prophet. And these are some artifacts from it. Invitations and posters and things like that. This is a poster. And these are some of the invitations here. This here is a woman riding a double-headed snake dragon thingy. Okay. So, an American secret society founded in 1878 by Charles and Alonzo Slayback, originally open only to men. Yearly themed balls were hosted by them. And among the many symbols included the Seal of Solomon with the zodiac images of women riding beasts, dragons, pentagrams, hexagrams, jinns, or spirit from Arabian esotericism, and other lore from occultism. It says in 1973, the stage steps were crashed into by a protester named Gina Scott, causing her to fall and fracture her ribs. Despite that, she managed to run up to the VP and rip off his hood, revealing the vice president of Monsanto Chemical Corporation, Tom K. Smith Jr., seated on the throne. He was the Veiled Prophet. I guess they pick a different one every year. It says the organizers wanted to sue but decided against it once an open court appearance would be required. The Veiled Prophets had deep connections to various U.S. presidents from Glover Cleveland to George Bush, members of the U.S. military-industrial complex, and members of the U.S. intelligence service. So what is Arabian esotericism? Well, if you look at the founder of this secret society, the Veiled Prophet, Alonzo Slayback, he was a chief of police at that time, and it tells you that he founded that society based on the concept of this character, Al-Muhammad, who was a mystic from the Middle East around 500 AD, who fashioned himself as an oracle or prophet, but he was also a politician and a military leader. And his religion was Zoroastrianism, which came from Babylon and then morphed into Mithraism, which was the Roman version of Zoroastrianism. This is just a drawing of a depiction of the parades you see here. You got a giant back there. You got the sphere, somebody with their scepter. And if you look closely, you'll see the all-seeing eye on it. There's the all-seeing eye. There's another all-seeing eye there. There's actually a few of them. So see, it's always the same with these elites. It's always the same. Of course, there's a crown involved. I think this one has a French flair, so you have the fleur-de-lis and the Templar cross, which Sean Ross says this Templar cross is a representation of a 3D pyramid, like if you fold it down on itself, maybe. Possibly. And this is just an advertisement poster from the 1883 parade. See, here you got your veiled prophet, and he's on this dragon griffin thing. Thanks, Iggy, for sending me that. That's a good example. I hadn't heard of that one before.
All right. So, here's another carnival poster from the Mystic Society. It has winged horses and gods and goddesses and clowns. It says, Mobile, Mother of Mystics. The Order of Myths is the second oldest mystic society still in operation today, and here's from their float, Folly Chasing Death, which reminds me of the phrase, I lived in Acadia, spoken by the bringer of death. Now let's look at some of the past and present society names. The first one is Apostles of Apollo. And the corresponding Bible verse to that is, and they had a king over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, but the Greek tongue hath his name Apollyon. Other names are Ancient Society of Mystics, Court of Isabella, Etruscans. Lots of knights and crews, including the crew of the Phoenix, Masters of the Old World, the Mystic Strippers Society, Neptune's Daughters, Order of Angels, Order of Athena, Order of Butterfly Maidens, Order of Dragons, Order of Druids, Order of Imps, Order of Inca, Order of Isis, Order of Juno, Order of Osiris, Order of Pan, Order of Venus, Pharaohs, Sirens, and the original dragons. Thanks for listening.